It's right on the verge of being cherry blossom season here in Japan, which is a big deal. You can see these are cherry blossoms right about to bloom. This is what they look like. I'd say in a week these will be open. People will be celebrating here in the park, having their picnics, drinking. It's a huge deal here in Japan. Welcome to Watch Symposium. I'm Austin. All right, so going hands-free today. I have a clip-on tripod, and you can see behind me this beautiful cherry blossom tree. It's blossoming. It's full-on sakura season here, and the footage that you saw at the beginning of the video was some that I took this morning. It's been an interesting cherry blossom season. When the cherry blossoms first started opening, it was overcast, kind of cold. Now it's beautiful out, but it's still chilly. And it was about 4 degrees last night. There's a chill in the air. It's windy. Not the kind of weather I'd want to drink in the park in, but people are doing it. Maybe we'll have a better cherry blossom season next year. Anyway, hands-free. I can do an easy wristwatch check. The Seiko speed timer from 1970. Am I still slumming it? I don't know. Is this slumming? This is a legitimate vintage watch. This is a cool watch. I wouldn't call this slumming. When I first got this watch, not so crazy about it. I sort of have a new appreciation for it. I'll go into it. Kind of a shallow reason, but I'm starting to like this watch. I was on the fence about whether to flip it or not, and yeah, I'm still on the fence. But anyway, that's for another video. I want to talk about Rolex. Does it need your help being cool? Well, I take you back to one of the most famous Rolex watch-wearing characters, the international man of mystery. Am I talking about AC3? No, long before AC3 there was Bond, James Bond. And this is before money came into play and a backroom deal got an omega on James Bond's wrist. No, this is back when James Bond was the real James Bond. Sean Connery, right? He had on the watch that's pretty much synonymous with the character, and that's the sub, the 5512 or the 5513. Now, I believe it was Ian Fleming that had a Explorer, and in the novels, apparently, Rolex was worn by James Bond, but it was nondescript. I don't think a model was ever named. I could be wrong. I've never read the books. But when the movies came out, apparently, the story goes that somebody on set had a sub, and they thought, okay, cool character, cool watch. We'll put them together. That works. And so since then, this sub has been sort of synonymous with James Bond. And so. And it's a great match. They're both cool, and it's debatable. Does the character bring up the watch, or does the watch bring up the character? I would say it's about equal. But you know, you've got sponsorships with Rolex, and that can sort of bring up the brand. You've got Roger Federer, right? He's handsome. He's charismatic. He's a talented tennis player, and he's exactly the kind of guy that Rolex would want wearing their watches, and he does the brand justice. It's a perfect fit there. But every now and then you'll have a company come along and they'll get kind of cute, and they'll try to take a Rolex and make it cooler, and it's a miserable fail. Now, the first time I saw this was when I came across this Explorer 2, and some company had taken it, and as you can see, they put some black coating on it and essentially ruined the watch. Now, in Japanese behind it, it says something like, the only one in the world. And you can see that the gray market put a premium on the watch. So they're expecting somebody to come by with more money than sense and to get taken by the, quote, rarity of the watch, and perhaps be drawn into the idea that this could be a collector's item. I think nothing could be further from the truth. The same thing goes with this black Air King, which again has a premium. Now, it would be interesting to see what they would pay you for this watch if you were to take it in, because my guess is that they're not going to pay you a premium for it if you're trying to sell it to them. They're probably going to take money off. But once they lowball you and they get it, they're gonna sort of talk up that unique factor and tack on a premium. And if somebody's foolish enough to be taken in and buy it, well, that's the way it goes, right? Now, when I was in Nakano, we saw a couple of these. We saw the Mickey Mouse Explorer 2 and the Mickey Mouse Oyster Perpetual, and again, premiums on those. I think the worst example was the Chuck Yeager, which sort of fooled me. Now, I don't think the shop assistant ever said that Rolex did it. I don't want to put that on him, but for some reason I was under the impression that Rolex might have done that, and it was surprising to me. And it was especially surprising when I looked at the dial and I saw, it said Chuck Yeager, and then below the COSC standard writing it said something like the real McCoys, and I thought, that's weird, that's kind of cheesy. What is that? Is that what Chuck Yeager and his fellow astronauts were called or something? Well, it was cheesy, and my intuitions were correct. And thanks to a viewer writing in, I came to realize that the real McCoys was a leather jacket company that did that, right? And first generation, I guess they bought 50 of the watches and what I can only characterize as defaced them, and then sold them. And I guess it did well enough, and there were 50 suckers out there that they got 150 and did a second run. And that unfortunate piece that you're looking at came from the second batch. And the back of the case is, again, uncharacteristic of Rolex. Rolex does tasteful things, and there's something a little awkward and strange about the watch. So, true enough, it's a third party that did it, and if you're unfortunate enough to buy this watch, I think the best thing that you can do is to take the Rolex and get a authentic, non-defaced dial and a fresh case back on it. Of course, somebody who buys the watch is not going to want to do that. They're going to think that they have a collector's item, and I'm sure somebody will be taken in by this. Now, you've got to laugh when a company comes along and they take a perfectly good pure Rolex and they try to get cute with it and try to enhance it, because what they do is they end up ruining it. They do the opposite of what their intentions are. And look, perhaps their intentions are just to sell to a few uninformed punters, and I guess judging by the fact that they came out with a second edition, the real McCoys, I guess it worked. Now, you've got to wonder what Chuck Yeager thinks of these. Now, my guess is that he didn't quite sign off on them. My guess is that he signed off on them making and using his name for their leather jackets, and probably in the fine print it said leather jacks and other items or something, and next thing you know, he's got his name scrawled on Rolex watches. Anyway, I think it's a shame, and the best thing you can have when it comes to Rolex is a pure Rolex. You don't want aftermarket parts. You don't want third-party parts. You want Rolex purity, and that's really the height of coolness, and that's what you want. And so, if you do come across one of these watches and you think, wow, this is kind of cool, this is kind of trendy and new, and wow, this could be a collector's item, I think the first question you should ask is, did Rolex do this? And if Rolex didn't do it, don't walk, run. Okay, you don't want anything to do with it. Companies like this take away from the Rolex. You want Rolex purity. Rolex doesn't need any help with their styling or their fashion. They do things just right, and I would advise anybody against being taken in by these sort of modifications. What do you guys think? What do you guys think? Am I wrong here? Are these cool Rolexes? Are they going to be worth a pretty penny in the future? I think quite the opposite. I think you're better off taking your 30 grand, and instead of getting that Chuck Yeager defaced Rolex, I think you're better off doing a little bit of haggling and getting 3 pure Rolexes. And I think that's gonna hold value much more But what do you guys think? What do you guys think? Take care. Thanks for watching. See you next time.